Is that the motion be agreed to. The Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, can I acknowledge the Greens' principled stance on those issues alongside their principled stance on proposing an earthquake levy, and the Greens create the circumstances which embarrass Labor into stating some position on how they think they would pay for not just the earthquake but also the many other promises that they are now making. And Mr Speaker, many of us attended the earthquake memorial service last week, and I want to take this opportunity particularly to acknowledge the presence of the Australian Prime Minister, the Australian Leader of the Opposition and the Australian Governor-General. It was a generous gesture on their part for all three of them to do something that I understand they haven't done before, and that is all leave the country at the same time to come to New Zealand without seeking necessarily the high profile you would expect overseas leaders to seek. And Mr Speaker, as literally the dust clears from the earthquake, the impact of it on the economy and on the government is also becoming a bit clearer. The government is determined to continue with its longer-term program to rebalance the economy. So while the earthquake is a significant setback, it is not sufficient a knock to push us off course, and we need at times like this to remind ourselves just what that course is. And as we talked about in question time, the government has set out to rebalance this economy with the assistance of New Zealand households and businesses who, after all, make the decisions that actually change the economy. And we need to rebalance the economy because it got way out of balance. We had excessive consumption, we had a housing boom, both of which were funded by very rapid growth in debt, particularly in the private sector. So in 2007, for instance, total credit in this economy grew by something like 25%. This year it's growing by about 1%. So New Zealanders have realised that excessive reliance for a sense of wealth and well-being on debt is not sustainable, and the global financial crisis has brought that to a pretty sudden halt. At the same time, we need to beef up the earning capacity of this economy, because from 2004 onwards, our export sector actually shrank by about 10% through to 2010, while our domestic and spending sectors grew by about 15%. The fact that the shrinkage of our export sector had meant that there'd been no new jobs in the export sector for 10 years, no new jobs. Almost all the new jobs that were created through the first decade of this century were created in the non-tradable, non-competitive sector dominated by government and the extravagant management and wasteful spending of the previous government. So, Mr Speaker, the tax package, where the final bits of it come into effect on the 1st of April this year, was one way of helping to rebalance the economy. And it has, I think, had some effect. That is, people are being more careful with their spending. They would have been anyway, but the increase in GST has certainly created more of an incentive for them to be careful. We are reducing the taxes. We have reduced tax on income back in October, but now taxes on companies, on savings vehicles, and increasing the taxation on housing, all of which is designed over the longer term not to put money in people's pockets straight away, although most New Zealanders are better off as a result of the tax changes, but which are designed to push this economy in the direction of more saving, more earning, more exporting and more investing. Now, the impact of the earthquake is quite significant, and it will somewhat delay that process. But I don't think there's any debate really, even from the opposition, about the direction of the plan this government has for the economy. They may argue about bits and pieces, But, Mr Speaker, we are staying on track. We're going to absorb the impact of the earthquake and stick to the plan.
The Honourable Annette King.